Now, there's a story that goes back to the 1940s. I didn't know Richard David's parents. I would only be 12 or 13 at that time. But the whole family have shown respect and an understanding that perhaps is a little extraordinary. Not out of the ordinary, but extraordinary. And that is that there were quite a few children coming from Germany, Jewish children and other children coming from Germany on what was called Kindertransport. And that was in the days of 38 and 39. And amongst the very latter numbers that came were two girls, two Jewish girls, sisters, and accommodation was requested locally for them. Well, accommodation could have been found in various Jewish families, but not together, and they refused point blank to be separated, which is understandable. Obviously, they didn't speak English, perhaps, and being quite young. Well, the Attenboroughs took them in, and it was Frederick Attenborough and his wife. Frederick was, of course, the principal of University College at that time. And the boys, Richard, David, and John, were their siblings. And Richard tells the story, and one has no need to question it, that the parents got the children together, got the three of the boys together and said, look, before we say we'll take these two sisters, are you agreeable to it? Because 3 becomes 5 and lots of things change. And they all agreed. Richard, David, and John, who I never met, called these 3 girls their sisters. And it was after the war, when the war was ended, the 2 girls went to America, but they kept in touch with Richard and so on. And I thought it was a very humane and a very marvellous act, not just to take one, but to take the 2 and to consult with the rest of the family how they would respect and accommodate them. And a few years ago, there was a tragedy in Richard's life, the tsunami, when his granddaughter and his daughter-in-law were killed in that tsunami. And Richard really bore that very badly. It hit him very completely. And during that time, I was given an honour by the university. I was standing around in the gown, and Richard and David were seated for photographs. And David said to me, Frank, come on, come and sit in the middle. And there you have something again that perhaps nobody else would have even thought of. I might not have even thought of it. You know, he wanted me to sit in the middle and them to be on either side of me. And I have that picture, which I'm very fond of. During the time that we were fundraising, I became rather passionate, I suppose, about how we would show special respect to Richard in some tangible way. And the answer to that was, oh, we'll have a photograph taken of him and have it on display. I said, well, do you think that is appropriate for having done all this and brought in people, brought in money, obviously given money, and nobody could offer any possible alternative? I think I first of all spoke to Bryan Organ. And I said to Bryan, I've been thinking about this business of a photograph or a painting of Richard. Are you prepared to do a painting of it? Oh, he said, yeah. He said, you know, I know Richard like the back of my hand. I'd love to paint another picture of him. So the next thing I did was to speak to Ken Edwards, the Vice-Chancellor, and I said, Ken, been thinking about this business of honouring Richard and what we do for the centre. How do you feel about doing a portrait of Richard? We hadn't got a portrait of Richard anywhere in the university at that time. And Ken was very agreeable. He said, yeah, brilliant idea, fine, yeah. He said, will Bryan do it? I said, yes, I've had a word with Bryan and he's ready to do it. So, okay, that was 2 out of 3. And I then I rang Richard and I said, Richard, I've got a question I'd like to ask you. Would you like to have your portrait painted? He said, oh, I've had it painted many times. So I said, yes, I'd like to have you painted for the centre. Oh, how very generous of you and very nice. Now this is where the diplomat comes in. Now Richard is the essence of diplomacy. And this really puts a stamp on it. So I said, oh, well, I'd like to have you painted. Can we make some arrangements? Oh, my boy. Will you let me think about it? I said, well, there's nothing really to think about, Richard. I said, we'd like a picture of you to hang in the centre. Well, give me a little time to think about it. Now, I knew, by knowing Richard this time, what he was thinking. He was thinking, I'm going to get some local hack, brush and paint, canvas, easel. But no. So I said to him, well, I've had a word with Bryan, and he's delighted to paint you. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yes, he said, I'm seeing Bryan at the weekend at Lord's. He said, I'll have a word with him. He said, yes, I'll be pleased to. Now, there is a man that was being kind, that didn't want to offend me, that didn't want to say who's painting me, didn't want to ask any questions. But as soon as he knew it was Bryan, it was perfectly all right to go ahead, there was no time thinking business.